Growing up as a half-troll, Alun was mostly left alone, and people also said and considered that his mind moved a bit slow. Often bullied and teased, Alun had gotten many ugly names from the other kids. The most mean was Krika, a red-headed girl with freckles who thought that Alun looked weird and ugly and smelled funny. And in part, she wasn't wrong. Alun did walk around with a troll tail after all. He also had sharper teeth, a bigger nose and pointier ears with some hair on top of them. So he was a great target for many pranks and nicknames. And the adults that lived up here in the mountains didn't disapprove either. No one seemed to like Alun except his mother. Even though Alun was a product of rape from a full-grown troll raping his mother, she still loved him. But because she decided to keep her half-troll baby Alun, she was more or less left in exile. So that's how she and Alun lived alone together in the mountains. But from time to time, when she looked at him, she was reminded of the horrible events that had produced Alun. "Out and play with the other kids!" she would sometimes say when her depression got the better of her. And that's how Alun spent so much time alone running around in the mountains, or until he found a bunch of kids that he could follow after. Alun always thought that it was fun when Krika was around. Krika was the natural leader of the kid group. She was the one who decided what form of adventure or, well, prank that they would do. Everyone always rallied up behind her, especially Alun, not just because she was pretty. She knew how to talk. She knew how to make things sound exciting. Sometimes they would hike high up in the forest mountain, where the adults normally wouldn't let them go. Alun was always the one that carried the food. "Hurry up, pack mule!" They would often shout to him to make him keep up. High up in the mountains, they had a great view above the treetops where they could let their eyes stretch out and gaze and look over the entire landscape. They would often sit around a campfire listening to Krika's fantasies of what existed beyond their eyesight. Alun always loved these moments. Other days they would go swimming and jump off really high cliffs into the water. They would always make Alun jump off first in every new cliff spot to make sure that it was safe for the rest. He was just an expendable half-troll after all. Other days they would play hide and seek, or well, that's what they told Alun. He was always the one chasing. They would actually play run away from the freak boy and do something else. Other days it would just be Alun and Krika alone together. Alun actually loved those days because Krika would always figure out a really fun adventure for them. Krika always hated those days. The boy always kept following after her like a dog, and she would figure out ways to get rid of him. She would often send him in to steal some apples, potatoes or tomatoes from some of their neighbors. If he got caught, then she was rid of him. If he didn't, then she had something to snack on. Sometimes she just wanted to walk around in the forest alone and fantasize in her own head, dreaming about the world beyond this horrible and boring place. And when she would turn around, there he stood, Alun, walking right behind her. She never knew how long he had been walking in her footsteps, or how he could magically find her. One day, Alun and Krika was alone together on the river bridge. It was in the early spring, so all the snow high up in the mountains had melted and were now crushing down in a stream of water. You could hardly hear anything from the sound the river made. The young troll boy just stood there with a big smile on his face, looking like a dog waiting for a treat. "Hey, you know what? Why don't you jump into that water?" Krika, a bit annoyed, casually said. Without a sign of hesitation, Alun climbed the safety railing and jumped down 3 meters into the flooding stream. His head went down below water and he was gone. Krika didn't expect him to do that. For 5 days, Alun's mother had been running around asking people if they had seen her boy, and on that 5th day, Alun came walking back alone. The only thing that he said was, "I got lost." He never mentioned Krika. For the first time in her life, Krika had actually felt guilt. She had realized that Alun actually saw her as a true friend, and she had just tossed him away. She had eventually figured out that he wasn't following her around because he was some form of a troll lapdog. No, he followed her around because he liked her company. After the river bridge, she started to actually defend him and even made sure that the other kids didn't call him names. She even started to like his little whipping tail and thought it was really funny and interesting that he could move and winkle his ears. She was even surprised that he was actually good at singing. One day, she had been stumbling around in the forest and caught him alone singing. He was actually much better than her at this, something they actually started to practice together. But eventually, she realized that the game had changed. It was no longer run away from the freak boy. Now they call it avoid outsiders. She was no longer the natural leader of the kid group. Instead, they actually started to ignore her. Went hiking, playing and swimming without her and Alun. Strangely, for some reason, she didn't mind that, because this proved that they had never been true friends. And it surprised her so much that the first person, and actually the only person that she trusted, was a half-troll. Krika had never ever trusted any one of the other kids, and definitely she didn't trust any one of the adults, especially not her parents. But she did trust this half-troll, and saw him as an equal, as a friend, and started to cry the day when Alun told her that he had always known that he didn't like him, and they actually played run away from the freak boy, and that they only used him as a pack donkey or someone that they could throw out to test safe waters. "Oh, I never minded, and I've always had fun around you," Alun said to Krika. Krika was sad for him in his stead, and she stopped wandering around alone and daydreaming in her head. Instead, she told Alun all about her fantasies. One day, when they were hiding in the tree hut they had built themselves, Alun said to Krika, "When you leave this place, can I come with?" She had gotten so surprised. She had never told anyone about her plans of running away from home. But instead of asking him how he had known, Krika answered him with a "yes," together with a happy and excited smile.